Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. These are the weeks that were, are, and shall be. I want to start by telling you about something I recently discovered, and I don't know why I didn't know this earlier, but the fact is, if you have the ebook of The Way of a Dan, you can purchase the audiobook of The Way of a Dan for a lot less than the normal listing price. So in other words, you have the ebook, or you're buying the ebook, you can add on the audiobook for, I think it's $7.47 or something like that. Same is true, by the way, for The Prophet of a Dan and Return to a Dan, and apparently a lot of other books too. I did not know this about Amazon/Audible, that if you have the ebook, you can get the audiobook for a drastically reduced price. So just wanted to share that information. I don't know if that's only for indie books or what, but I know that right now anyway, that is the case for the Edan Trilogy audiobooks as narrated by Alan Walker. And by the way, I'm getting some fantastic feedback on Alan's performance in all three books now. The Way of a Dan has a good number of ratings already, so you can check those out if you're curious. Prophet of a Dan is beginning to accumulate more ratings, and Return to a Dan, I have to say, is my favorite of the three of Alan's performances. He's just done a marvelous job in Return to a Dan, and I hope that more and more people discover his talent and that he will go on to do many more audiobooks. Another exciting thing is that I have a physical copy now of the Italian translation of The Way of a Dan, La Via di Edan. And this translation by Abel Montero, I wish I could tell you that it's I don't read Italian is what I'm getting at here. I don't read Italian, unfortunately, but I read passages of it in here, and I'm like, I can sort of translate because I do know French and Latin and a bit of Spanish, so I can kind of piece together, and it seems lovely to me, but I have heard feedback from some actual people who really do read and understand Italian really well that this is a great translation. So I'm just really proud and happy to have this here, and I know that Abel put a ton of work into this, and that he is himself an accomplished writer. So there, and let's talk about the channel, what I've been up to. Had a discussion of Howling Dark. That's book 2 of the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio, and this discussion group is absolutely fantastic. We've got some real luminaries there. We've got John and Jacob from Talking Story, and we've got Dylan from the channel Spaced Out Reads, and we've got the author Jenny Wirtz. And the 5 of us have been discussing the Sun Eater series. We had our discussion on Howling Dark, which I really, really thought was amazing. This was a book where you can see an author really going for it. And I was thoroughly engrossed in this experience, which, by the way, I am doing Sun Eater via audiobook. I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but and I'm loving it. I'm so happy now to be fully engaged with audiobooks and having them be a part of my life of stories here. A really important part of my life of stories. I never would have predicted that a couple of years ago. But here I am, listening to the Sun Eater on audiobook and loving the experience. Overall, I would say that this series has exceeded my expectations so far. And by the way, we're going to be having our discussion on Demon in White on May 8th at 7:30 p.m. The Friday evenings are the only time because of the different time zones and working and other things. But we figured out that Fridays evenings are the only time that this group can meet, so that's what we're doing. But that is going to be another live stream for Howling Dark on the 8th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I am, as I was about to say, really loving this series so far. And I do recognize the criticisms and agree with the criticisms about the very obvious ways in which this series so far is wearing its influences on its sleeve. That's one way to put it. I've heard other people put it more negatively than that. But the fact is, yes, you can see the huge influence from Book of the New Sun and from Dune. And I'm told as well that Lois McMaster Bujold is another big influence that is fairly apparent. I have not read her books yet, but that being the case, I have to say, and I've said this already in a couple of places, I'm actually enjoying Sun Eater more than I ever enjoyed Book of the New Sun. And let's see at the end, because I really do love Dune, but I may have to say by the end of Sun Eater that I even enjoy it more than I enjoy Dune as well. And I had a discussion recently I'll be talking about in a bit about influence and inspiration and the fact that all great books owe something to other great books. And so I'm wrestling with this. Sun Eater is making me think a lot about the role of the influence and inspiration, if we want to call it that, put it in a positive spin on it. Christopher Rocchio has put together a story that I find more enjoyable than some of the very important and you could argue more original sources that have inspired his story. So what does that mean, for this, for storytelling and how it works and everything else? I'm still wrestling with that, but to be honest with you, I am really enjoying Sun Eater. It is he's doing something different too. Let's say that. Yes, those influences are obvious in there. Sometimes, by the way, they even extend as far as they're very close paraphrasings of things that Severian might say in Book of the New Sun and Hadrian will say in Sun Eater. I mean, they're almost word for word at times. So that it's that obvious, it's that there, it is that present. But I will say that I feel that Rocchio has done something really original too in this. He's put together these things and he's, his brain has produced a new story that does something a bit different from what those other stories do. For example, though it owes a great debt to Book of the New Sun, as I said, I enjoy Sun Eater more. And I find Hadrian, though he is very much, I think he owes his existence to Severian, no doubt about it. But I find him far more relatable than Severian. And that, to me, is important. I do prefer, I don't have to always do this, but I do prefer when I'm reading modern fantasy to find something to relate to in the characters, something that I can see myself in or see aspects of me perhaps in ways. But so I do find Hadrian to be much more engaging than Severian. So there it is. I mean, I'll probably continue to wrestle with this as I enjoy. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm pretty much addicted to Sun Eater right now. I'm loving the series and having a really great time. It's just great storytelling. And just putting aside the fact that, yes, the influences are very obvious in places. It's a great story. I'm having a blast with it. So I'll continue to think about that, but I'll also continue to enjoy this series and the discussions. I'm having a great time with Janny and John and Jacob and Dylan. I'm having a really good time with those. So I hope if you're a Sun Eater reader and you're at that point in the series that you'll join us for the Demon in White discussion on the 8th. Next I had a discussion on the channel about The Lions of Al-Rassan by Gavriel Kay, and this is part of the GGGKR, the Great Guy Gavriel Kay read. I am reading along with my friend Evan from The Nerd Writer all of Guy Gavriel Kay's published novels. We're reading them, except for the fact that we started with Tagana, we are reading them now all in publication order and having discussions on each one with different friends joining us for the various discussions. And so Joanna and Aaron, whose channel is Dr. Erinnerung, joined us for our discussion of The Lions of Al-Rassan, which is another just huge hit for me. I have to say that this is one of my favorite literary journeys that I've been on, not just during my time on YouTube, but in my life. This is getting close to my experience with Malazan. We'll see. By the time it's all over, I have no idea. I don't have to rank these things. These are just all great literary experiences for me. But I feel this is going to be, this is going to place Guy Gavriel Kay up there, along with Stephen Erickson and Robin Hobb, Janny Wirtz, among the very greats of the genre for me, in terms of what resonates with me, what I love. And it's just brilliantly written. Kay is definitely, in my mind, one of the very best in terms of prose, in terms of character work. These are very emotional experiences, at the same time very thought-provoking. Each one of these reads, most of them being standalones, but you do have a couple Fiona of Our Tapestry, and then of course the one I've got coming up, the Sarentine Mosaic. So Fiona of Our is a trilogy, and Sarentine is a duology. But most of them are, other than that, I think there are some that are kind of related to others, but they're really standalones. But yeah, just brilliant, brilliant stuff. I can't wait to be further along in this journey. I am already beginning to dread that it will end eventually in early 2027. But in the meantime, I'm really going to savor every one of these books. So far, they have been tremendous. And the biggest problem Guy Gavriel Kay has given me is I cannot rank them. Every time I'm reading one of his books, I think, okay, this is now my new favorite. And I'm sure if I reread any of the other earlier ones, I would probably put it back on top because they're all really that fantastic. So I'm loving this experience. I will be discussing sailing to Sarantium probably in late May. I have not yet scheduled that discussion. We have a great couple friends joining us, some new people in the GGGKR, so a couple new faces, not new probably to most of you, but new in this journey, this particular journey. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be a really fun discussion of Sailing to Sarantium and its sequel when we get to that in late June. But I think, yeah, Sailing to Sarantium is probably going to take place. Our discussion will happen in very late May because of some things I've got going on, just traveling and other plans, as it were. So, and very busy, of course, right now with the end of the semester as well. So yeah, I've got that going on. Okay, so up next, I had on the channel a discussion with the author A.R. Witham, or as I like to call him, my friend Andy. And we had a great time chatting about this question I was just addressing earlier about originality. Is originality overrated? Is the kind of clickbait way to put this. But really, it was a discussion about inspiration and all of that sort of thing. And this was within the context, though, of me listening to the audiobook of Don't Die, Dave. This is Andy's latest release, which is a lit RPG very much based on the hit series Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman and narrated by Jeff Hayes. Now, Andy does his own audiobook narration as well, and he does a tremendous job. And again, this is a case of an author taking something that inspired him and doing something new and different and interesting with it and telling a great story in the process. So if you are at all a fan of Dungeon Crawler Carl, I think you should check out Don't Die Dave. I think you might love it. So this was a great discussion. I had a fun time with the audiobook and also a fun time chatting with Andy about it. And elsewhere on YouTube, I was in a discussion of Empire of Grass by Tad Williams. This is the second full novel in The Last King of Austin Ard. I'm in a discussion series with Andy Smith, who hosted our discussion of Empire of Grass, and Nikhil from Shelf Esteem, and Ben from Books with Benghis Khan. And this is another, I'm getting spoiled this year in a big way, because this is another one where I am just absolutely immersed. This is also going to be up there for me. This is knocking on the door of my very favorites here as well. Now, I love Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, the first series in Austin Ard, but I feel like Tad Williams has really surpassed that marvelous achievement in The Last King of Austin Ard, at least so far. I have two more big novels and a novella to get through first before I can give a final verdict on that. But so far, halfway through, and I am loving this even more than Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And I've said this earlier, but I do feel that this is a worth sharing. If you haven't heard me say it, it is well known that George R.R. Martin was inspired by Tad Williams' Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series. And what happened here in The Last King of Austin Ard is almost, I feel like, and I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I feel like Tad Williams has in turn been inspired by George R.R. Martin, and that in The Last King of Austin Ard, you can take the best of what was in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn and take the best of what's in A Song of Ice and Fire, and you get The Last King of Austin Ard. So I'm loving this series a lot, and can't wait to get further in and chat with Andy and Nikhil and Ben. In fact, I'll be hosting the next one, which I'll be talking about in a moment. And upcoming on YouTube, a couple things I want to tell you about. I will be participating in a celebration over at BellTube. Yes, my dear friend Brian is returning after a brief hiatus from his channel just to get some things together over there and deal with some personal stuff. But Brian is going to be back, and we're going to be celebrating his birthday on, let's see, the 7th. I think it's going to be around 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Time. He hasn't quite said exactly which yet, but the evening of the 7th. So coming up pretty soon. And I always love chatting with my friend Brian, and it'll be great to celebrate his return as well as his birth. So yay. And we also have speaking of the Grand Poobah, we are going to have a Quilluminati discussion. Now, a while back, we read Interview with a Vampire, or I did, and I know that John and Jacob over at Talking Story also read it. This was going to be a Quilluminati discussion back in March. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen then because Brian and Mike both were dealing with some stuff, but now we are ready to discuss Interview with the Vampire. So a late Quilluminati discussion, and we'll be announcing our next Quilluminati read, which I believe we'll be having in June. But yeah, this was a very interesting read. Lots of stuff about mortality in here, some heavy stuff in here, mood-wise, but a very interesting, very engaging story, and I'm excited to talk with my friends. And that discussion, by the way, is going to be on the 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, hosted by John from Talking Story. So we will be over at Talking Story on the 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to chat about Interview with a Vampire. So what am I reading now? Well, of course, I am reading One Piece. I have been, unfortunately, life has been very busy, and I have not been doing my happy place reading as much as I would like, but now I am back. We are back in business, and I am deep into Act 3 of Wano. In fact, I'm coming up on, I'll probably finish today reading chapter 1000, and a lot of people have told me that I need to watch the corresponding episode for the anime. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to, and I believe it's episode 1014. I hope that any One Piece fans out there who know, please confirm for me or correct me. But I think it's episode 1014 that I need to watch. I would look these things up, but every time I look up something related to One Piece, there's a gazillion spoilers all over the place. So I'm very shy about looking things up, pronunciations and things like that, because anytime you do that with One Piece, it's just spoiler city. So, but a few people have told me, and I think it's episode 1014, that I need to watch when I have read chapter 1000 of the manga. So I am so excited for this because, not only am I deep into Wano Act 3, but I'm really feeling the emotions, and I think I'm going to have a few things to say when I make that Wano Act 3 video. I'll probably discuss the fact that I watched episode 1000 when I release that video and tell you what I thought of the episode as well. So there is my One Piece update. And I'm also reading some other stuff. I'm on audiobook. I'm currently listening to No Heart for a Thief. I do have the physical copy, obviously, here as well. This is the first book in the Malitu series by James Doolin, a great fellow who I would very much like to interact with more and have a discussion with. In fact, I'm going to do that after I finish listening to No Heart for a Thief. I'm really enjoying this. I'm about halfway through, actually, now, and very impressed by what I'm hearing. The narrator's doing a great job, too, and I'm enjoying this experience very much. This is a story, in many ways, of a society dealing with colonization and oppression, and the things that people have to live with in such a scenario, and it's very well done. I'm very impressed. So I will have a discussion with James. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to frame that discussion yet, because when I do chat with a fellow indie author, I like to broaden the topic a little bit and find out what things the read makes me think about, as I did with Don't Die Dave and Andy. We made that discussion not just about Don't Die Dave, but about the idea of originality. And The benefit to that is that, quite frankly, more people will watch that discussion and hear about those books. That's one of my goals here. I want to have great discussions that you can all watch and enjoy, but I also want you to hear about these indie authors, because it's very, very difficult for an indie author to get the word out. And understandably, people won't watch videos if it's about a book they haven't heard of yet. That's just something that we all know around here, that if you make a video about a very popular series, you get a lot of clicks. If you make a video about a less known or an older book, let's say, or an indie book that just more people don't know about, maybe it's just as good as the popular one, but because more people haven't heard of it, it will get fewer clicks. That's just how that works. So I've been trying, I've told you in my last episode of the Weeks That Were about how I'm making these a kind of a series, I guess you could call it, where I sit down with various indie authors and talk about subjects that are related to the books that I'm reading. And then we can sneak in some discussion on the books as well. So I hope you'll stick around for the more specific discussion on the books, as well as the general topics that we're talking about. Speaking of great indie authors, one of my next audiobook listens is going to be Blood Reunion, the third book in the Hybrid Helix series by J.C.M. Byrne, my friend Joe. I've had a couple discussions with Joe on the channel, and I'm really loving the Hybrid Helix series. Its hero, Rohan, is a fantastically realized character, and I'm very excited to hear. I've been enjoying those audiobooks a lot, and I'm so excited to see what happens in Blood Reunion with Rohan and the gang, and return to that world. And I will also be listening to Kingdoms of Death, the fourth book in the Sun Eater series, which I'm incredibly excited for. Another narrator that I think is doing a fantastic job, by the way. For me, that narrator is the voice of Hadrian right now, and he's doing a really great job. So I'm having a lot of fun with my audiobook listens. The physical books. So I have a confession to make. Don't know how necessary it is to talk about this at length, but I DNF'd a book, and it was a bit of a surprise to me. I picked up Earth of the New Sun on the advice of many, many, many people, because I did read Book of the New Sun, and it was a mostly positive experience for me. And I'm not saying this was necessarily a terrible or negative experience. It's very similar in many ways. A lot of people were saying that Earth of the New Sun was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be something that Gene Wolfe wrote at the behest of his publishers to clarify some things about Book of the New Sun. I wasn't getting much clarification in here. I was getting a lot of what I got in Book of the New Sun, which was a lot of layers of symbolism, and of course Severian doing his thing, being Severian. And I don't know if it's because I'm enjoying the Guy Gavriel Kay books so much and the Tad Williams books so much. I mean, these two for me, I mean, I really feel like I'm getting spoiled rotten. But I love those reading experiences so much. In fact, in some curious ways, I feel like those two are much more the inheritors of Tolkien than other authors, for various reasons. I'll have to make a video about that someday, maybe. But I digress. Gene Wolfe is doing his Gene Wolfe thing. He's doing his own thing, which is unique and brilliant in many ways. But I just don't like Severian. And maybe it's also because of Sun Eater. Maybe Sun Eater is, for me, what I would prefer over what I get in Book of the New Sun and Earth of the New Sun. I don't like Severian. I dislike him very much. I find him not only tedious and annoying, but I don't like the way he looks at women, and I don't like the way he talks about women, and other things. I also find it very difficult to relate to him and any other character as seen through his lens. Everybody is really flat for me. I don't connect with any of the characters. These books, as brilliant as they are for me, and I don't think Gene Wolfe was trying to deliver an especially emotional experience in Book of the New Sun, or as far as I read. I got about 100 pages into this, by the way. So I got far enough, and just every page was torture for me. No pun intended there with the torture thing, because Severian is a torturer, or was a torturer. But yeah, no, it was not a pleasant experience. I was not enjoying being there and listening to Severian again. Yeah, I just thought, why am I pushing through this when I'm not enjoying it at all. And I could be interested in the symbolism that's just layers and layers, and it's like reading an allegory. It's like reading an allegory in many ways. There's a lot of symbolism in there. But I would have to care more about it, I think, in order to really get into those symbols. So sorry, the Gene Wolfe fans out there. This is probably going to be a hard DNF for me. I just don't really care to listen to Severian again. but I do want to read more Gene Wolfe. There are other things he has written that I'm curious about. So let's see if I resonate more with those things. And I am also very glad that I read Book of the New Sun. I will always be glad that I read that. But yeah, that's it for me. This is not a DNF necessarily, but I am stalling on the Feist series, original trilogy, whatever it is, in the Rift War saga. I read Magician, and both parts of that, if you read the version that's separated, it's really one book. So I read Magician, and I was supposed to follow that up with Silverthorn and A Darkness at Sethanon, because we Illuminati were going to get together to read this, but Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews, who was really the reason we were all reading this actually, did not exactly love. It was kind of meh for Mike, if I could use that as the kids say these days. If they still say that, I don't know. But it was not something that he got really enthusiastic about. And for me, I was probably a little more positive than Mike was on Magician. I did have a discussion with John and Brian that was hosted by John over at Talking Story. It was fun. It was a fun read. It's a good page-turner type of read. Not a ton of depth in it, though, and it's not a book that I feel like will really stick with me in many ways. Though I had read Magician way back in the day, and again, enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that's screamed to me, you have to keep reading. So, in other words, I'm trying to tell you that we're not going to have that Illuminati discussion about that trilogy, but I will eventually, because I do occasionally like to get to a book that just I can flip through and have fun and enjoy, and I feel like that's what Silverthorn and A Darkness at Sethanon are going to be for me. So, a palate cleanser, as they say. I'm going to use them as palate cleansers at some point, even though we're not having that Illuminati discussion. So that's not a DNF, but I'm just stalling a bit. What I'm actually reading right now is Lord and King by P.L. Stewart. I'm a little over halfway through this, and this is part of a buddy read that I'm doing with a bunch of people. It's been organized by Shay over at Zachary Shay, and we've had discussions on the first two books in P.L.'s series, the Drowned Kingdom Saga, and this is book 3, Lord and King. And so far, I am really having a great time with Lord and King. P.L. has really built upon his strengths that he has learned in the first two books. I really loved the end of the latter half of The Last of the Atalanteans, which is book 2 in the series. And I feel like he has basically arrived at that same level right off the bat here in Lord and King. And just really having a great time with the epicness of this world that he's built, with the journey of the main character, Othron, who is getting a little more nuanced, a little more complex. Yes, he's still a kind of a very prejudiced individual, very flawed individual, but there are times when I find myself rooting for him and even liking him and saying, hey, he's maybe not quite so bad. And I'm feeling bad for him at times too. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where PL takes me in the other half, but I hope that group led by Shay will be getting together to discuss Lord and King. I think I'm one of the last, actually, to finish, so sorry, guys, about being the slow poke. What else am I reading here? Physical books. I'm going to next pick up Destiny's Doom by Von Roycroft. This is way overdue. Von really impressed me with the first two books in this series, the Sundered Nation trilogy. I loved them, The Severing Sun being the first book. And yeah, Destiny's Doom is book 3, and I'm actually very eager to find out what happens with this. Talk about flawed protagonists. Talk about complex characters and relationships. this series has it. And if you haven't heard of it yet, the Sundered Nation trilogy is inspired by the clash of the Romans and the Goths way back in history, with a bit, it's very low fantasy in this sense, but there's possibly some prophecy kind of magic in here as well. So it is fantasy. I would call it historical fantasy. Very well written by somebody who is obviously a student and a lover of the genre. And yeah, I just see a lot of the stuff that I love in this trilogy. And I'm very excited to read book 3, and I hope to chat with the author, with Von Roycroft. Yeah, I've had some discussions with Von and reviews of his books already on my channel. I do have a playlist for that as well, so you could check that out if you're curious. And after that, we'll be reading Brothers of the Wind. This is part of this read of The Last King of Ostenard. We are doing the little novellas as well. So we're doing the 4 main books, or 3 if you want to count the last one that got split in half. He did the same thing in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. But anyway, there are 4 big fat books and 2 skinnier books. And now we're on one of the skinnier books, Brothers of the Wind. This is actually a prequel thing. Happens even before Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. But it gives you some insight into some characters that play an important role in the upcoming 2 books. So that's why it's placed in here in the read in the series. It may also be that Tide Williams published this. If you're reading them in publication order, this would be the right time. But yeah, we're going to talk about that prequel novella, if that's what I'm supposed to call it, for Ostenard. I'm going to be hosting that one. We haven't set the date yet, but it'll be late May. And then I will be picking up the first part of the Sarantine Mosaic with Sailing to Sarantium, and could not be more excited to be doing this. And I'll be talking with Evan and our 2 mystery guests who I think are going to add a lot to the GGGKR. And that's it for me, guys. That is it for me for now. Until next time. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. I don't know how I could have forgotten this, but I am also going to be reading The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. And this is going to be a buddy read. I'm going to be talking with several friends about this one. So I'll tell you all about it in an announcement as we get closer to the actual discussion. But yes, The Spear Cuts Through Water. Evie is going to kill me if I forget. Yes, I am looking forward to this very much. All right, that is it for me for now. Till next time.